Ethan Calder crouched by the fence, his hands gripping the cold wood as the wind whipped across the empty field. The sun had dipped below the horizon, leaving the sky streaked with deep orange and violet. He had been finishing the last chores, checking the livestock, when a piercing shriek cut through the evening air. It was not human, not like any animal he had heard on his farm. It was high, desperate, and laced with terror. He froze for a heartbeat, listening. Another cry tore through the air, closer this time, shaking the ground beneath his boots. Something massive crashed through the cornfield, sending stalks snapping and dirt flying. Ethan's heart raced, but a strange determination surged inside him. He dropped the tools in his hands and ran toward the sound. In the clearing ahead, the sight made him stagger. A creature crouched low, wings folding against its sides. Its scales shimmered in the fading light, glowing faintly like embers in a dying fire. Eyes wide and frantic, it hissed, smoke curling from its nostrils. Ethan realized with a sudden pang that the creature was not just large. It was a mother, desperate and furious, circling a tiny shivering shape on the ground. A hatchling barely bigger than a rabbit trembled in the cold, its fragile wings folded against its chest. Ethan's first instinct was to run. Fear gnawed at him, a warning screaming in his mind. But then he saw the baby dragon, quivering and whimpering. The mother's gaze flicked between him and her child, muscles tense, wings twitching. She was poised to strike, yet there was hesitation in her eyes, an unspoken question hanging in the air. Could he be trusted? He swallowed the fear lump in his throat and ran the last few steps. "I'm not here to hurt you," he shouted, voice steady though his chest pounded. He crouched low, holding out the thick wool blanket he always carried for emergencies. It smelled of hay and smoke from the barn, nothing threatening, nothing sharp. The mother hissed, a sound that made the air vibrate, but she did not lunge. Ethan's hand trembled as he scooped the hatchling into the blanket. Its tiny claws dug into the fabric, and a faint plume of smoke puffed from its nostrils. He felt the baby's heat, fragile but real, and a sense of hope ignited in him. For a brief moment, everything was silent except the baby's shallow breaths. The mother's tail lashed once, sending a nearby tree branch snapping. The ground shook with each movement of her massive legs. The wind gusted again, and Ethan realized the storm clouds gathering in the distance were moving faster than expected. Lightning flickered across the horizon, illuminating the mother's scales in ghostly patterns that twisted and shifted like ancient runes. He couldn't understand them, but their beauty and strangeness held him frozen in awe. This was no ordinary creature. Something intelligent and aware waited behind those glowing eyes. A sudden gust of wind knocked him sideways, and the blanket slipped for a second. The baby squealed, smoke curling in tiny spirals, and the mother's roar split the air. Ethan scrambled, pressed the blanket tightly to his chest, and stood as tall as he could. "I'll protect you," he said, voice firmer now, more determined. "I don't care how big you are. I'll protect you both." The dragon mother tilted her head, nostrils flaring. She stomped, sending clods of dirt toward him, and Ethan flinched. But instead of attacking, she froze mid-step. Then she took a slow, deliberate step back. The tension in her body eased slightly, as if she were testing him, reading his intent. The baby nestled closer into Ethan's chest, smoke puffing softly against his skin. A tiny warmth bloomed in his palms, a reminder that this fragile life depended on him, and that he could not fail. Then came the sound, a faint rustle in the cornfield, different from the wind. Something moved, unseen, a shadow larger than the hatchling but smaller than the mother. Ethan's pulse quickened. He glanced over his shoulder, heart hammering. The mother hissed again, low and warning, eyes scanning the dark rows of stalks. Ethan realized that whatever lurked there was not human, but it wasn't attacking, yet. He adjusted the baby in the blanket and whispered, "Stay calm. Don't fight. We can do this." The hatchling's tiny claws dug deeper into the wool, smoke curling as it whimpered softly. The mother lowered her wings slightly, watching Ethan, and he felt something shift, a fragile, tense trust forming between them. Lightning flashed, revealing the shadow clearly. Another dragon, smaller but aggressive, crouched in the distance, eyes glowing with intent. The mother stiffened, hissing sharply. Ethan's stomach dropped. He understood immediately, this was not over. The danger had only just begun, and the safety of the hatchling, and the trust he had begun to earn, was at stake. Ethan swallowed hard, gripping the blanket tighter. "I won't let anything happen to you," he murmured, voice low but fierce. The mother's eyes softened for a moment, a fleeting recognition, before the rival's movement drew her attention back. Ethan's mind raced. He had no weapons, no reinforcements, only courage and quick thinking. But already he sensed the choice before him: act or watch everything fall apart. The wind howled, the shadows shifted, and the distant figure advanced slowly, deliberately. Ethan's heart pounded. He knew one thing with terrifying clarity: nothing in this night was as it seemed. And the next move, his move, would decide everything. Ethan felt the weight of the hatchling pressing against his chest, its tiny heartbeat fluttering like a trapped bird. He couldn't afford to freeze now. The rival dragon crouched low at the edge of the cornfield, muscles coiled, scales glinting faintly in the lightning flashes. Its eyes were fixed, burning with intent, and every instinct screamed danger. The mother hissed sharply, her tail whipping toward the shadow. She was ready to defend her baby, but Ethan could see the tension in her posture. She did not want to fight, not completely. He took a deep breath, forcing himself to calm the panic rising inside. Fear would make mistakes, but careful action might save both dragons. Slowly he stepped forward, raising his free hand to show he meant no harm. "We're not your enemies," he said, voice firm but calm, projecting confidence. He knew sound carried far in the open field. The rival dragon might hear him and hesitate. The mother's eyes flicked to him again, searching, and then to the rival. Ethan noticed something: small, almost imperceptible gestures in her body. Her wings shifted slightly, signaling readiness but not aggression. She was waiting for him to act. In that moment he realized the human advantage. The dragons were intelligent, but they could be reasoned with. Quick thinking might tip the scales. He scanned the area and spotted a stack of hay bales near the barn. If he could create a small barrier, he could give himself and the hatchling some protection while testing the rival's reaction. Without hesitation, Ethan sprinted toward the bales, ducking under the mother's outstretched wing to avoid startling her. Dirt and debris kicked up around his boots as he moved, but he ignored the sting. Every second counted. Reaching the hay, he piled several bales quickly, forming a crude barricade. The hatchling squirmed slightly, smoke curling in nervous puffs, but Ethan held it steady against his chest. The rival dragon crouched lower, wings spreading, preparing to charge. Its roar split the night, shaking the air, a sound that would have frozen a lesser human in place. Ethan, however, tightened his jaw and stepped forward slightly, projecting presence. Courage, he reminded himself, could influence creatures far larger and stronger than him. The mother dragon's roar joined his, a protective echo vibrating through the ground. The rival paused, its head tilting as if reconsidering. Ethan seized the moment. He threw a small torch he had grabbed from the barn toward the far edge of the field. The flames licked the grass, crackling loudly. The rival jerked its head back, startled by the sudden fire, and instinctively jumped backward. Small victory, momentary but enough to buy time. Ethan didn't relax. Lightning flashed again, revealing faint patterns on the mother's scales, glowing lines that twisted like writing. He couldn't decipher them, but the beauty and strangeness of the markings reminded him. This was no ordinary creature. Something intelligent and aware watched him, weighing his actions. Respect and trust had to be earned. The rival dragon recovered quickly, narrowing its eyes. It moved sideways now, testing the barricade, claws scraping dirt. Ethan felt the hatchling shiver and his chest tightened. He whispered softly, "Hold on. You're safe with me. I won't let them hurt you." The baby responded faintly, curling closer into the warmth of his coat. A tiny plume of smoke puffed from its nostrils, harmless but alive, a fragile reassurance that his actions had meaning. He knew he needed a plan fast. The rival was too large and aggressive for brute force. Thinking quickly, Ethan grabbed another torch and ran toward the barn. He kicked open the door, yanking out a few metal buckets. Pouring water from the well, he splashed a line between the barn and the rival's path. Steam hissed as it met the flames, creating a sudden burst of fog. The rival stumbled slightly, confused by the heat, smoke, and water all at once. Another small win. The mother dragon tilted her head, watching his actions closely. Her eyes softened in recognition of his courage and ingenuity. The rival, however, hissed, annoyed, and crouched again, wings twitching. Ethan realized this confrontation wasn't just physical. It was a test of wit, patience, and understanding. He shifted his stance, placing himself between the rival and the hatchling. He didn't just need courage. He needed to outthink a creature bigger, stronger, and far more aggressive. Another flash of lightning revealed movement from the cornfield's edge, something Ethan hadn't noticed before. Two glowing eyes appeared briefly in the shadows, reflecting in the stormlight. He froze. Could this be another rival or something stranger? The mother hissed sharply, backing closer to him and the baby. He understood instantly. She trusted him now, enough to let him guide their actions, but the danger had multiplied. Thunder rolled overhead, the storm's fury pressing down. Ethan felt sweat running down his temples, mixing with dirt, but he refused to step back. The rival dragon lunged forward suddenly, claws scraping the ground, wings beating the air violently. Ethan pivoted on his heels, dodging to the side and shouting, "Go back!" His voice carried authority, a human asserting dominance through courage, not size. The rival skidded, momentarily disoriented, giving the mother dragon the opening she needed. She leapt forward, wings flaring, letting out a roar that shook the earth. The rival hesitated, recognizing the combined force of human ingenuity and dragon instinct. Ethan's chest rose and fell rapidly, adrenaline surging, but a grim understanding settled over him. This was only the first of many tests. The hatchling whimpered softly, warmth radiating through Ethan's arms. He looked up at the mother, her glowing eyes meeting his, and a fleeting sense of connection passed between them. The rival retreated slightly, eyes still fixed, but not entirely defeated. Ethan knew they had survived this round, but the night was far from over. A sudden shadow crossed the clearing, larger than the rival, moving with deliberate intent. Ethan froze, heart hammering. The storm whipped harder, rain beginning to pelt the field. The mother hissed again, defensive, and Ethan tightened his grip on the hatchling. Something bigger, stranger, and more dangerous was approaching, and there was no time to prepare. Ethan's breath came in quick, sharp bursts, rain soaking through his coat as the shadow loomed closer. The figure was massive, far larger than the rival dragon, and its scales shimmered darkly under the storm's flashes, like liquid metal in motion. The wind whipped around them, carrying the scent of ozone, smoke, and wet earth. Every instinct screamed danger, but Ethan's eyes never left the hatchling in his arms. He knew he couldn't falter. The mother dragon pressed closer to him, wings partially spread, her glowing eyes tracking the newcomer. But something in her posture had changed. She no longer seemed purely defensive. There was recognition, a flicker of understanding in her gaze. Ethan's mind raced. Could this be a guardian, an alpha of sorts? Or another predator, drawn by the baby's vulnerability? Either way he had to act, and fast. He stepped forward slightly, hands raised to show non-aggression, while scanning for anything that could give him an advantage. The barn lay behind him, but it offered little cover in this open field. His eyes landed on a shallow ditch running alongside the cornfield. If he could lure the creature over it, even briefly, it might slow it enough to protect the hatchling. The massive dragon growled, a low rumble that vibrated through Ethan's bones. Lightning illuminated its full form. Jagged horns, scales etched with strange markings unlike the mother's, and eyes that glowed a fierce amber. The rival dragon crouched beside it, tense but cautious now. Ethan realized the storm, the terrain, and his own courage had created a fragile stalemate, but one wrong move could shatter it. He took a deep breath and whispered to the mother, "Trust me. We can do this together." The dragon's eyes softened slightly, almost imperceptibly, and it shifted closer to him as if waiting for his next move. Ethan's heart lifted briefly. He had learned something crucial. The mother responded not to force but to intent. Empathy, courage, and calculated action mattered more than sheer strength. Acting fast, he grabbed a handful of wet hay from the barricade and flung it toward the edge of the ditch. Sparks flew as a stray lightning strike hit the dry wood nearby. The smaller rival lunged instinctively toward the noise, claws skidding in the mud. Ethan used the brief distraction to pivot and step closer to the mother, holding the hatchling steady against his chest. "We can't let them separate," he muttered, feeling the tiny heartbeat against his palm. Then came the shocking discovery. The mother raised her head, exhaling softly, and the glowing lines on her scales shifted rapidly, forming a pattern almost like letters, or a message. Ethan blinked. He had seen the faint glow before, but now it was deliberate, almost communicative. The mother nudged his shoulder gently with her snout, a small but unmistakable gesture. She was signaling him, guiding him, asking for cooperation. Ethan froze for a moment, realization dawning. This was more than instinct. These dragons were intelligent, capable of understanding and responding to human action. He wasn't just protecting a creature. He was part of a silent, delicate negotiation, bridging two very different species. A wave of awe mixed with urgency. He could not fail, not now, not ever. A flash of lightning revealed the massive shadow's next move. It crouched low, preparing to strike at the mother and hatchling simultaneously. Ethan acted instinctively. He grabbed a loose metal rod from the barn and swung it at the ground near the massive dragon's front claws. The clang echoed, startling the creature. Its attention flicked to him, giving the mother a moment to spread her wings and rise slightly off the ground, ready to shield her baby. Rain lashed Ethan's face, mud caking his boots, but he kept moving. He edged toward the ditch, waving his arms, shouting, and using every ounce of presence he could muster to influence both dragons' attention. The rival mirrored his movements, confused, giving the mother an opening to nudge the hatchling backward toward him. He caught the baby just in time, warmth pressing against his chest, heart hammering with relief. Then the storm intensified. Thunder cracked overhead, and the larger dragon froze, struck by a bolt of lightning that illuminated the field in a stark white flash. For a heartbeat, everything paused, the wind, the rain, even the mother's hissing. Ethan saw it clearly, this was a moment to act. Courage and quick thinking, not fear, would tip the scales. He shouted again, louder this time, forcing the creature to shift its stance. Then he did something unexpected. He stepped forward, closer than seemed safe, holding the hatchling high. The mother leaned in toward him instinctively, protective but trusting. The massive shadow hesitated, uncertainty flashing in its eyes. Ethan's heart raced, but he stayed still, radiating intent, determination, and the unmistakable truth. He would not let the baby be harmed. A small but powerful payoff came immediately. The massive dragon blinked slowly, then retreated slightly, reassessing. The rival mirrored it. The mother's wings relaxed fractionally, smoke curling softly from her nostrils. The hatchling squeaked and nuzzled closer into Ethan's chest. He realized the unthinkable. Through courage, empathy, and intelligence, he had altered the outcome. A human had influenced dragons, not by force but by understanding. Ethan glanced over his shoulder, scanning the storm-dark cornfield. Something moved in the shadows, a hint of more eyes, more creatures watching silently, judging his every action. The night was far from over, and the first major threat had only revealed a larger, deeper mystery. The glowing patterns on the mother's scales faded slightly, but their meaning lingered in his mind. Intelligence, emotion, and communication far beyond human expectation. He hugged the hatchling tighter, chest heaving, rain washing away some of the grime and fear. He knew this night was a turning point. The mother had begun to trust him, the rival had been checked, but unseen dangers remained. And somewhere in the darkness, something watched that neither dragon nor human had yet comprehended. Ethan's heart hammered as the shadow moved closer through the storm. Rain lashed his face, mud clinging to his boots, but he did not flinch. In his arms, the hatchling squirmed, tiny wings fluttering weakly. The mother dragon crouched protectively, wings spread wide, smoke curling from her nostrils like a warning. Ethan's eyes flicked between her and the massive newcomer, far larger, stronger, and far more dangerous than the rival dragon they had faced moments before. The massive dragon's amber eyes glowed like molten fire. Its scales shimmered darkly under the lightning flashes, jagged and sharp as obsidian. Every muscle in its body tensed, ready to strike, and its gaze locked on the hatchling. Ethan realized instantly, this wasn't just a test. It was an attack, deliberate and merciless. The mother hissed, tail thrashing violently, wings flaring, but Ethan knew sheer strength alone would not protect them. He had to act. He stepped forward, keeping the hatchling pressed to his chest. "Stay back," he shouted, voice cutting through the thunder. The words did little to stop the creature, but they reinforced something vital in his own mind. Hesitation would be fatal. He scanned the field quickly, searching for anything to give him leverage. Lightning illuminated a shallow creek running along one side. If he could use it strategically, even the massive dragon might falter. The mother leaned close to him as if sensing his plan. Her wings flared higher, the soft glow of her markings pulsing like a heartbeat. Ethan felt a surge of determination. He would not allow fear to dominate. Human intelligence, courage, and quick thinking would turn the tide. He knew the hatchling's life depended on it. The massive dragon lunged first. The ground shook with each step, wings creating gusts that threatened to throw Ethan off balance. He pivoted, dodging the claws and the sudden roar that split the stormy night. "Use your head, not just your hands," he muttered, a reminder to himself as much as to the mother. Lightning flashed again and he saw an opening. The massive dragon had overcommitted its front claws in the strike, leaving its flank exposed. Ethan grabbed a metal bucket from the barn and hurled it at the edge of the creek. Water splashed high, steam rising as lightning struck nearby. The sudden disturbance startled the massive dragon, forcing it to pause mid-strike. The mother hissed triumphantly and leapt slightly forward, wings curling protectively around the hatchling. Ethan didn't wait. He sprinted toward the creek, ducking low, keeping the baby safe. His mind worked faster than his body, calculating angles, distances, and reactions. He could feel the storm pounding against him, hear the rival dragon retreating behind, and sense the mother's trust radiating like warmth in the chaos. Courage alone wasn't enough. Precision, speed, and cleverness were now his weapons. The massive dragon lunged again, closer this time. Ethan sidestepped, dropping the hatchling into a shallow section of the creek. Water soaked the baby, but the coolness seemed to calm it. The mother roared, smoke curling and mixing with the storm, her markings glowing fiercely. Ethan seized the moment. He grabbed a long branch, swinging it toward the massive dragon's side, snapping off a shower of sparks when it hit a rock. The creature startled, claws sliding in the mud. Small victories but crucial. The mother nudged the hatchling toward Ethan, backing it to safety, while the massive dragon reeled from the distractions. Ethan shouted over the thunder, urging the mother to push the rival further away. The two dragons lunged, twisted, and maneuvered around each other, their movements fluid, intelligent, coordinated, but always with Ethan's quick thinking guiding them. A sudden crack of lightning struck near the massive dragon, illuminating its scales in stark white flashes. It froze, momentarily dazed. Ethan saw his chance. He sprinted forward, holding the hatchling high, and placed himself between the creature and the mother. "You will not harm them," he bellowed, voice fierce, unwavering. The intensity of human courage in that moment, small, mortal, but unyielding, gave the mother a surge of confidence. She lunged in perfect coordination with Ethan's movements, blocking the massive dragon's path and forcing it to step back. The rival, still unsure, hesitated. Ethan realized that sheer bravery, paired with intelligent positioning, could manipulate even beings far stronger than him. The hatchling chirped softly, curling into his chest, smoke drifting in delicate curls. The storm began to ease slightly, rain falling in heavy sheets but less violently. The massive dragon blinked, amber eyes narrowing, assessing Ethan, the mother, and her hatchling. For a long, tense moment, nothing moved except the hiss of the mother and the splash of water. Then, with a low growl, the massive dragon retreated, slowly moving toward the shadows of the far cornfield. Ethan sank to his knees, chest heaving, holding the hatchling tight. The mother lowered her wings and nuzzled the baby, then nudged Ethan gently with her snout. A connection had formed, fragile but unbreakable. Trust earned through courage, intelligence, and compassion. Small, meaningful victories, the sparks, the bucket, the careful positioning, had saved 3 lives tonight. But Ethan's relief was tempered by unease. Something had watched the entire fight from the storm-dark edges of the field. He had seen it briefly, 2 glowing eyes in the distance, larger than the rival but smaller than the massive dragon. Whoever or whatever it hadn't moved yet. The night was far from over, and danger still lingered, hidden in the shadows beyond his understanding. The hatchling stirred, smoke puffing softly, and Ethan whispered, "We made it through, for now." He looked at the mother, whose eyes glimmered faintly in the last flashes of lightning. In a small, miraculous way, the impossible had been overcome. Humans could face unimaginable odds, not with strength alone but with courage, wit, and heart. The storm had passed, leaving the field slick with mud and glistening with raindrops. Ethan's boots squelched against the soaked earth as he stood, the hatchling safe and warm in his arms. Its tiny smoke curls drifted lazily into the morning air. The mother dragon lowered her wings completely, sitting close to the baby, eyes glowing softly in a way that made Ethan's chest tighten. There was no roar now, only quiet, mutual understanding. Ethan exhaled slowly, feeling the tension seep from his muscles. Every decision, every risk, every desperate act had led to this fragile calm. He had faced creatures far larger, stronger, and more mysterious than himself, yet the outcome had been shaped not by strength alone but by courage, intelligence, and empathy. He felt the weight of that truth settle deep in his bones. Humans could shine even against the impossible. The mother shifted closer, brushing her nose against Ethan's shoulder, a gesture of recognition and trust. He smiled despite exhaustion, brushing his mud-caked sleeve against her snout. "It's okay," he whispered. "You're safe now. Both of you." The hatchling squeaked softly, nuzzling his chest, smoke rising like a fragile thread of warmth. Small moments like this, the softness after chaos, felt monumental. Ethan stepped carefully back, keeping the hatchling secure, and glanced toward the distant cornfield. The rival dragon was gone, and the massive creature had retreated, but he knew instinctively that the shadows held more secrets than he could yet comprehend. Something had watched them throughout the storm, unseen, intelligent, and patient. The encounter tonight had been a trial, but the real story was only beginning. "Come on," Ethan said softly to the mother, speaking in a calm, steady tone. "Let's get you somewhere safe." The dragon hesitated briefly, then, as if acknowledging his leadership, she nudged the hatchling forward with a careful swipe of her snout. Together, human and dragons moved toward the barn, moving slowly but with purpose. Every step was cautious, every glance toward the shadows a reminder that survival required vigilance. As they reached the barn, Ethan set the hatchling down gently, letting it curl into a pile of fresh hay. The mother circled once, then lowered herself so that her chest touched the ground, wings folded, smoke curling softly from her nostrils. She didn't just accept him, she respected him. That recognition, silent yet profound, made Ethan's chest ache with pride and relief. In a world of chaos, fear, and unknowns, he had earned the trust of a creature far beyond human understanding. He leaned against the barn wall for a moment, mud and rain dripping from his hair and coat, and allowed himself a small smile. The night had tested everything about him: courage, intellect, compassion, and the ability to act decisively under pressure. And yet here they were, alive, unharmed, and beginning to forge a bond that crossed species and expectations. Humans could rise, even against what seemed unstoppable. The hatchling's eyes followed him as he moved closer, smoke curling in gentle rings from its nostrils. Ethan knelt, letting it sniff his hand. It was timid but curious, trust growing with each careful gesture. He could feel its tiny heartbeat again, fragile yet steady. A profound realization settled over him. Empathy and courage were not abstract virtues. They were tools, sharper than any weapon, capable of altering fates. The mother's gaze remained fixed on him, and Ethan felt a quiet connection, a shared understanding. This was no longer about survival alone. It was about partnership, respect, and the promise that he would protect them as fiercely as they had protected the hatchling. He smiled again, feeling the warmth spread through his chest. This small, impossible victory was theirs together. Yet as dawn broke over the horizon, a flicker of movement at the edge of the cornfield caught Ethan's eye. Two glowing shapes, faint but unmistakable, lingered in the shadows. The mother stiffened slightly, the hatchling squeaking softly in response. Ethan's stomach clenched, adrenaline rising once more, not out of fear but awareness. The night had been survived, but the world was larger, stranger, and more dangerous than he had imagined. He tightened his hold on the hatchling, standing tall, voice firm and calm. "Whatever's out there," he whispered, "we'll face it. Together." In that moment he understood that bravery was not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. Humans could shine, even when the odds were stacked impossibly high, and intelligence, empathy, and courage could shape outcomes that brute force never could. The mother nudged him gently with her snout, smoke puffing softly in response to the rising sun. The hatchling followed, timid but trusting, and Ethan felt the bond solidify, a fragile alliance, a bridge between species. He knew this was only the beginning. There were mysteries waiting in the shadows, dangers he had yet to meet, and questions that had no immediate answers. But for now he had given life warmth, protection, and trust. As he stepped back, scanning the horizon and the cornfield's shadowy edge, a subtle pattern of movement caught his eye. Something was approaching, but not aggressively, almost curiously. Ethan's pulse quickened, not with fear but with anticipation. Whatever it was intelligent. It had watched, learned, and waited. And now it might finally reveal itself. The sun broke through the clouds, casting golden light across the wet field, glinting on the mother's shimmering scales and the hatchling's small, trembling form. Ethan took a deep breath, feeling hope and determination swell inside him. Humanity's courage and heart had altered the course of the night. He knew this was only the first chapter in a story far larger, one that demanded bravery, quick thinking, and compassion against impossible odds.